Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I find it to be a matter of extreme privilege to be addressing this conference yet again. This is the second time I'm doing it. And for some of you who may not be aware, my name is Anil Chait. I'm commanding the Central Army, which is the custodian of the strategic pivot. But what I speak would be in my personal capacity and not that of the CNC of the Central Army. But what I intend to do is to bring about a perspective, a soldier's perspective, as to how do I see the fusion of technology with the war and the warfare. And the subject that has been given to me is the force multiplier, that is geospatial, for modern warfare. And towards this, I would like to bring to your notice my personal experiences in dealing with situations on the Western Front, understanding the capabilities that the Indian Army has and what it needs, the problems of connectivity, the ability to port data, based on my experiences of exercise Dakshin Shakti as well as exercise Vijay Bharat, wherein for the first time we fielded the headquarters ISR brigade, an intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance brigade was fielded, in which all these capabilities were brought together. I also would try and put across my experiences and understanding of the issue as to how this has been put to effective use. As far as the northern frontiers are concerned, as far as the sub-conventional warfare is, how it is being used, and how, rather conceptually, how it's supposed to be used to bring about the integration, and also my personal experiences when I was dealing with a very small and elite force, the Black Cats at the time of its raising, as to how we saw this utility and how it was actually executed during Gen Anil. So the soldier's perspective is first, and the topic is force multiplier for modern warfare. My thrust was more towards the warfare and the utilization of the technology. While analyzing this topic, I asked myself, why do nations rage so furiously? Why do we have wars? And the answer that came to me was that it is because of the human dimension. The human dimension of war, which is got the intent to dominate each other. Clash of human will. And that is perfectly a rational force. But when this rational force gets involved with the irrational force, which is based on contempt, primordial violence, hatred, it starts to result in a clash of will. And that's how even Clausewitz, in its enunciations on war, talked about the paradoxical trinity, which is comprised of the three elements. Some people called it as people, state and war, people, state and army, but actually that was not to be, and what it was primarily centered around the rational, irrational and non-rational forces interacting with each other to induce in us the desire to dominate, and hence the clash of will, which is basically the reason as to why we go to war. Is this basic human dimension changing? Probably the answer is no. This will continue to remain. But what is changing is, and that's where the modern narrative of the warfare comes in, is the way in which we are seeking to dominate the other person. And that is where I call it the character of war. So what is changing is not the nature of war, what is changing is the character of war. Let's look at the 21st century landscape and how does it impact on use of force and the changing character of war. Some of the issues which are causing the landscape to change are in front of you on the slide. I just would like to highlight some very basic issues. It is no more a war as we perceived it to be. The wars are becoming extremely limited. Wars are being fought by other means other than force. So in the nature of the modern warfare, we have to look at all aspects of national power. It is short notice and therefore it is primarily driven by the intelligence. The duration itself is short and it is premised on the information warfare context. The operations are being undertaken under media glare, and therefore you have to be very, very certain as to what is it that you intend to hit. Overall, the force option is proving to be less cost effective. If I have to therefore cull out as to what are the changes that are occurring, what we are seeing is that we are shifting from frontier to rear. No more wars are being fought on the frontiers. They are extending, the battle space is extending to the rear. And as it extends to the rear, it goes to the people. And hence again, and therefore yet again, you have to be very, very precise as to what is it that you wish to do, how you wish to do, and with what you want to do. The concept or the notion of victory itself is undergoing a change. And since warfare is all-encompassing, it is being played out during peace as well as war. It all depends upon what is the instrument that you are choosing to dominate the other side. And hence there is a change in the concept paradigm and the complexity of the factor of defense and national, regional and global security. So what is the shift? The shift is from defense to security, full spectrum operations, operations in information dominated world, and hence the emphasis on the cognitive domain. And what we are looking at is a soldier or a warrior, not only to be a warrior, but a scholar warrior who knows how to employ the various tools of warfare which are available to him to bring about the desired effect that the nation or the state wants the forces to deliver. Having seen the changing landscape, let's look at certain amount of challenges which are occurring on account of this change in landscape and the response mechanism before we arrive as to how the geospatial will provide to be the answer. Let's look at firstly the threat itself. Hasn't the threat undergone a change? Is it standalone? Is it only force on force? Is it a combination of state and non-state actors? Is it a combination of state, non-state, as well as the sets? Is it a structured way of fighting? Would this be the way in which we will fight in future? Or is it going to be more dispersed, more hybrid? And if it is going to be so, then it will bank upon the cognitive and moral domains as much as it banks on the physical domain. And lastly, it is going to be a calibrated mix of activities in the stretched operational battle space. It is a stretched battle space because you've gone from the frontiers to the rear. And having gone there, since you're not in a position to see, it has got both the element of the real as well as the virtual space. And therefore the threats which are going to emanate, which are being formed or are yet to form, will impact each and every one of us. Let's look at the second factor, the spectrum per se. I talked about that war is a continuation by other means. This was a very famous statement which used to be made, but today the warfare is continuing in peace, and hence it is not only confined to the use of force, it is also extended to large number of other instruments, which we can see little later. The spectrum has increased from conventional and stroke or unconventional, regular and stroke irregular. All the 5 dimensions of the spectrum are involved today in dominating each other. Generations of warfare are coexisting in this landscape, depending upon at what point in time you sit down and analyze what is it that I wish to do, and which medium I wish to do, which domain I want to do, and which generation of warfare tools I want to adopt to dominate the other. And hence it transcends the geographic borders and the organizational boundaries. It is not only the preserve of the military, it is the preserve of the nation, and hence we go into the domain of comprehensive national power. While all this is happening, various networks which are available, whether in the physical form or otherwise, are capable of being exploited depending upon the prowess and depending upon the investment that we wish to do to achieve the desired dividend or the effect. Coming to the digital battlefield in which we operate, certain factors which are relevant are already listed, but more importantly, there are certain amount of compatibility issues, problems of formats. We talked about, I was just overhearing certain issues of integration of wide area motion imageries and things like that, but there are certain issues because the generation of equipment which is existing is of various generations, various formats and protocols. We have soldiers or people who are in charge having certain amount of difficulty in responding to the issues based on the technology. And of course, there are stovepipes, organizations which do not want to share. So there are issues, there are challenges with regards to the digital battlefield. Let's look at certain amount of issues with regards to environment. Primarily today, in the environment, if the global commerce is impacted, it will force us to go for a quick decision, if at all we intend to use force or any other instrument. And hence it is a time critical environment. Matching pace of technology would further create challenges with regards to legal and regulatory structures which will come in place. When we look at the response mechanisms, that is with regards to what state is to do, the important part is there is no single approach. Defense and security are getting merged. We are shifting from security of the state to individual security. And when we shift to the individual security, we open up the whole huge area which comprises of people, and hence we look at technology to harness what is going to prevent damage to these people. And hence the requirement is, which we lack today, is a whole of government approach. And similarly are the implications as far as the forces are concerned. So therefore there is a shifting paradigm, and let's see as to how geospatial, in my views, is the answer. Primarily, when we look at the three, that is the physical, information and the cognitive domain, if there is one layer, one protocol, one format, one technology which is interlinking the three, it gets onto the geospatial. And as we see the services which are riding on it and the applications which are available, it can bring about the cohesiveness as far as the national power is concerned. Because all the three are linked to the various users. And if they all come together, probably we will have an answer with regards to whole of the government approach. And hence, the GIS is a true integrator and force multiplier as far as the various instruments of power are concerned. The slide barely gives out as to how it is going to bring about an integration as far as the various users are concerned. Now that was applicable at the strategic level. Let's come down a level low and let's look at the level of operational and strategic. And we find that earlier the friction and fog of war which was impacted on account of communication issues, on account of the information issues, on account of the geospatial references and details which are available, you find the friction and fog of war is going to go down. And what is going to happen is that it will facilitate centralized command but decentralized control of all the resources, and some of the issues that we used to have with regards to whether it was prevention of big mistakes, whether it was harming one's own, that is red on red, whether it was cohesion which was lacking, all comes together to ensure that the delivery of effect is of a very, very high order. Also, the economy of force automatically accrues because you've now integrated, and the effect that will come about is going to be in geometrical proportions. At the tactical level, the GIS is going to be, or the geospatial technology is going to be a great factor as far as the net-centric operations are concerned. And in the net-centric operations, which rely on the physical, information, cognitive, and the social domain, it can again act as a true integrator. I'm sorry, I know we are slightly behind time. I've already been given the signal, and that's why I'm trying to rush through. But what I'm trying to put across as far as the net-centric operations are concerned, that it basically is iterative of the reinforcing loop. By compressing the OODA loop, it generates a certain amount of velocity. And this velocity of information, when it is available, generates the velocity of maneuver, and when it does so, it provides the common platform for removing the inconsistencies which are there, and also improves the chances of victory. This is the net effect as far as the geospatial technologies are concerned. Briefly, let's look at the future. Global Trends 2025, it's a slide which I have taken, and the author is it has been picked up from a US magazine. This is what it said, and primarily it says that the strategic rivalries are more likely to revolve around trade, investments, and technological innovations and acquisitions. But we cannot rule out a 19th century-like scenario of arms race, territorial expansion, and military rivalries. This is a story not with clear outcomes. These trends suggest major discontinuities, shocks, and surprises, which are known unknowns. If that is what is the future, then we need to have a look at whole of the government approach. And this government of approach, if it is premised on the technology that we are talking about, it will ensure cohesion as far as strategic plans and policies are concerned. It will bring about a range of options, and based on the threat and risk, a particular option can be chosen to achieve the national objective, whether it be outright victory, strategic victory, decisive victory, or a victory which is revolving around the political advantage, depending upon what the leaders want to do. All the inputs are going to be available to the decision-making body, and after the decision-making body arrives at the most cost-effective answer, the decision is going to be out, and that will require interagency processes to be implemented. And hence a modern armed force, it is going to be riding on the geospatial backbone, will give us the ability of net-centric warfare, IT, RMA, C4I star, and what it will do is it will facilitate the information sharing as far as the tri-services are concerned. It will also look at joint services, coordination and execution. It will ensure there is an interagency process involving the various elements of power. Media and PSYOPs would get factored in because we would know what we are hitting, how are we hitting, or what is being hit, and what is the net damage that will accrue. Also the factor of perception management. Therefore, the recommended geospatial framework, if we have to bring about the military and civil together, along with certain amount of centers of excellence, the need is for a national geospatial framework. And after this framework is available, it needs to have a communication framework to support whatever is being transmitted for bringing about the desired effect onto the objective. And that will only happen provided we have the national information grid to harness the national power. Hence, the GIS is a primary integrator of power and a force multiplier in true sense. Thank you.